So my name is Santa Remere, and I live in Riga in Latvia, and I wear several hats. Basically, I write, but I do it for different purposes. So I've been translating quite a lot. I've been writing for newspapers, for magazines. I'm the editor of the internet culture platform Satori LE, and also every summer when I stay in Riga, I've been working also for a contemporary theater festival, Homonos, which is the main theater festival that we have. And this year in the beginning, I overtook the curator's job for this festival. So basically, but also being a curator means writing a lot
Mm.
yeah, in different stages. So yeah, I write for culture, let's say. Well, contemporary theater, I think, is the key word, but also contemporary arts and the accessibility of the culture content to different groups of people. So I've always been the one on the festival who cares for the younger audiences, for the children, teenagers, which is a very difficult group. There's not so much culture content for this group because they are exploring still their taste, and it's a very challenging and difficult group. I've been actually mentoring teenage curators for 2 years, and that gave me some insight and some trust to work with this group. Also, in our festival, we make it accessible to people with different physical difficulties to access the culture spaces. And this is something new for our culture scene, something we work on. And also as a journalist, as a critique, my focus is there to see who can enter the theater space, who can enter the culture space, who is the audience, who talks on the stage, and how can we involve everyone if we speak of a democratic medium. Yeah, how this democracy works in physical space, because more than 20% of people have some limitations, physical or perceptual limitations in the world. So people with disabilities is a big group. And if we speak that if the culture is the basic human right, how can it be that such a big percent of people are limited out of theater spaces? And also children are a big group of people as well. And do we share actually the same values among us? Is there a voice from teens or children coming into the culture space? Do they influence the decisions in the city, in the culture? So these are my passions, let's say. But I'm idealistic also. It is very challenging because if you work with a culture budget as a curator, it's difficult to convince that you also need these extra budget for making places accessible. And we always have to figure out how do we do. It's always a compromise. It's also to speak with artists about their ego, that no, you can't do it on the second floor because part of our team cannot see your audience if you make it on the second floor with a difficult stair, for example. So these are, but this is an invitation for a dialogue. Do you really need to be on the roof, or still you can have the same feeling or the same effect when you come on the ground? And with whom do you want to share this experience? Of course, sometimes you can stay in a challenging place, but also as a theater critique, when I see other people working, so I cannot escape that my focus is there to see like who was in the hall. Do we sit together? Do we share the same experiences? And yeah. So I think once you shift this this thing in your own perception, you cannot unsee. Yeah, and it's been like 4 or 5 years that we've been trying to make our culture spaces more accessible. And also when I experience other works, I try to see how, yeah, who is in the hall. As a critic, well, it was unexpected in a way. Because I've been studying, I have more education as an artist. At the same time, I've been traveling the world. I've been living in Japan, I've been studying in Paris, I've been working in Netherlands and in Iceland, and I like to compare these experiences that help also to understand myself and to see how our local scene works in regards of international. Some magazines started to ask me simply for my opinion. I didn't start as a professional critique. So I started with children's culture evaluation in a way, or commenting on it, and it was growing. It was a demand from the magazines, basically, that asked me to write not only about theater, but also about photography, and often about some international works or some influences, or yeah. Well, it's difficult. It's difficult because it's a small society and it's quite a small country, and it's quite narrow circles. People know each other. And this is where it's very difficult to stay independent, and also not be afraid to say honest critique, because sometimes people think, yeah, you came to my performance and we were friends, and now you are saying something also negative about my work. And this is a very difficult position, because it's almost like speaking at your family's table and saying, no, grandfather, you are wrong. And it is difficult to raise your voice with people that you appreciate and you love, and these are sometimes your teachers you've been learning from. It is the biggest challenge, I think, here to speak up. And also here, and also at your family table, it is important to understand that the honest conversation is important for your relationship, even if sometimes it's not flattering. And being a critic in Latvia means not only to speak about the work, but also defending the work of a critique all the time. Defending yourself, saying that it's okay, it's my profession, I'm doing this for everyone's sake, not to say that I know something more, or I don't like your work. It's for the benefit. I'm moderating this conversation between public and artists, and yeah. So we still have some printed magazines and newspapers, but it's sometimes difficult to get those because people read more and more digital content. But as a tradition, we do keep our theater printed magazine that comes out 4 times a year only. But their internet platform is more active. Then we have several other media platforms that have their culture segment or the culture part as well. Yeah, but of course there's also the social media is very active, and they start to have their role more importantly, like people blog about some performances or some cultural content, or there are Twitter responses, but sometimes, yeah, they can go wild. I think we don't really know yet how the social media is actually working. Sometimes you can predict, but you can't predict everything, because sometimes some good works are being canceled just because there was some media uproar. Just people actually didn't read the book, but they started to retweet each other. So there's this risk and harm. So this is good that there are some platforms with professional editors and moderators that are keeping this conversation at the table cultural, not wild. Well, it has been a while. I haven't been in Japan. I want to see actually how the scene has changed, because when I lived there like 15 years ago, I saw how it is quite in the future on some things, and things that only later came, I don't know, to Latvia or to Europe in some ways. I really like the, yeah, many aspects that I learned about Japanese attitude towards the contemporary art also during my studies. It will be a really nice encounter to see, yeah, what's the selection and how the works are going together. I'm super curious because, yeah, I think every region in the world also curates and organizes the events differently. And I just want to learn and want to see. I'm super open, but already with some curiosity. And I feel that I'm one of the few people from Latvia who have studied in Japan and who can interpret a little bit and bridge a little bit these cultures or impressions. And I'm super happy to say what's fresh in Kyoto. We like it usually.